Racism. It makes the headlines daily.
No racism! No war!
Now, there's new science that can detect racial bias in the brain. But how useful is this science? I'm Yasmin Abdelmajid. I want to know if this new science can expose racism and maybe even change it. And if science can help us reduce our own prejudice. So myself and 4 volunteers will take part in a social experiment to see whether we can unmask prejudice and even decrease it.
Oh no, oh my God, okay.
What we discover is confronting and surprising.
That one, that's the Australian doll, okay. Do any of the dolls look like they're not Australian? That one.
I'm going to be looked at because of the colour of my skin.
So, can modern science uncover the truth about racism?
Racism isn't fixed. Racism can reduce, and you can reduce your racism.
The Bronx, 12:40 a.m. Under the cover of darkness, 4 plainclothed police officers have chased down the wrong man, 23-year-old Amadou Diallo. What happens next changes the way scientists analyse racism forever.
If you were one of these police officers, what would you do next? They had less than 1 second to decide. What do you think is in Diallo's coat pocket?
In just 7 seconds, the police fired 41 bullets. The tragic shooting sparked massive demonstrations against alleged racism in the police force. But it also prompted an inquiry into how unconscious bias can cause racism. Today, we can understand racism like never before because the neuroscience is so advanced. This is the first documentary to showcase this new science. I'm an engineer, so I understand the need to test unconscious bias in a scientific way. So a laboratory has been constructed with cameras to record events as they happen. And 2 experts have been recruited, neurotechnologist Luke Dawson and social psychologist Dr. Fiona Barlow.
What we're going to be doing here is pretty cool, trying to find out what people's unconscious biases are doing. We'll be looking at things like micro-expressions, skin conductance.
The thing is, when we look at unconscious bias, our bodies can give us away. It's quite easy to control the words that we say, but sometimes we have implicit associations that only come out when we look at it this way.
For this groundbreaking experiment, we've asked 4 volunteers from different racial backgrounds to be tested over the next 10 days.
Thanks for coming along, guys. My name's Yasmin. We've come together to talk about the issues of racism, prejudice and bias, but really look at it through a new lens. So do you have expectations? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I'm excited because I'm chairman of a political party called Party for Freedom. We've got a strong platform that's anti-immigration. Our aim is to give Australians a patriotic alternative. It's time to close the door on a lot of this immigration coming in from the Middle East, from Africa and also Asia. Being involved in this project is going to be challenging. Just hope we get a fair trial.
Yeah.
The demographics in Australia are changing rapidly, and like I see an invasion today with all this immigration coming in, and I didn't ask for it.
It was a great experience to meet Nick.
Captain Cook didn't invade Australia. I can't change what happened 228 years ago.
I'm like, oh, really? Because what you're saying kind of sounds really ignorant. Grew up in Perth. My mum is Indigenous Australian. She's Wonga Nyamaji Nyongagaja. Racism in Australia is a subtle racism. It's the I'm not racist, but ... I'm very excited about being a part of this unique experiment. We do need every tool that we can get, especially in Australia.
My name is Ibrahim. I've been living here for about 6 years now. Somehow, I'm a strong believer that even people like Nick can change their views. I was born in East Congo, Africa. I left my country when I was 17 because my life was in danger. Australia is a very beautiful country. I only hate one aspect of it, and that is racism.
I am very curious to hear everyone's point of view about what an Australian looks like. I consider myself as an Aussie, but at the same time, I am an immigrant. I was born in South Korea. Australia is very much a multicultural country, and I like that about Australia. My profession is usually a science teacher, so I'm very much interested in how brains function and how that actually affects my racist thoughts. It's good for everybody, I guess.
You've all volunteered to be part of a pretty unique experiment. But you guys aren't going to be alone in this. We'll be doing the experiments together. We'll be finding out about each other and ourselves together.
Racism, the belief that one race is superior to another, can be measured through a questionnaire called the Symbolic Racism Scale.
We ask them a series of questions such as, have black people gotten too demanding in their push for rights? Questions like this are an index of racism. Indeed, they're very highly linked with a belief that people of colour are inferior on the basis of genetics. When I analysed the results, Nick was quite high on this scale. The others were all relatively low on symbolic prejudice.
I thought it was funny that one of the questions was talking about a 7-Eleven, and look, goodness me, you know, I've never been to a 7-Eleven where there's been a white worker before. They're all Indian, so I find the...
I would like to think that, you know, in this 10 days, perhaps we could convince Nick to think otherwise.
Opportunity to express myself more.
Differences within the group have already emerged. But what can science reveal about the hidden prejudice that we all hold? I'm eager to find out. Experts classify our own race as our in-group and other races as out-groups. The next test is about how willing we are to really look at those out-group faces. So we've come to a racially diverse fitness club.
Welcome, volunteers. We have a fun game for you right now.
We're joined by Dr. Kim Kirby, an expert in how humans perceive faces. She has a test to find out if race influences how we observe people's faces.
You're going to see a series of faces, just the face. They'll be peering through a blackboard. Your job is quite simple. We just want you to notice the number that will appear on each face. Okay.
Give it a go yourself. Try to remember the next 9 faces, because in a moment, some of them will be replaced.
Now, Now, you're going to see some more faces. Again, we just want you to notice the number on the faces.
So, some of these faces are new. Can you spot them?
Thanks, guys.
Here again is the second group of faces. Some of them were not in the first group. Make a note of their numbers.
Okay, Yasmin, did you notice any different faces in the second group than the first group?
This is way more difficult than I expected it to be. Number 7. Number 9.
Okay, Nick?
The lady number 3 and also number 7.
I think number 3 and number 7.
I think number 3 was not in the first group, and number 1.
I would definitely have to say number 3 wasn't in the first one.
Okay, now we're going to reveal to you the real answers. So those who were in the first part, please move back. And now I'm going to invite in the 3 original people who were in part 1.
How embarrassing. I feel pretty betrayed by my brain, to be honest. Disappointed in myself. That's probably how I feel about it.
But maybe getting 2 out of 3 wrong is not so unusual, because we all showed a bias. Nick and Sylvie missed the Asian swap. Ibrahim didn't spot the Caucasian change. And Shakira only noticed that the dark-skinned women had changed.
Now I'm thinking, am I racist?
So what you guys have all experienced today is referred to as the other race face effect. While we seem to be experts at recognising people from our own race, we tend to have a lot of difficulty recognising people if they're from a different race than our own.
We've all heard people say they all look the same. This is the other race face effect in action. Our brains focus on the individual features of our in-group, but fail to notice them in our out-group.
I found that test confronting because it revealed that I had some unconscious bias. But what was really surprising is that we all showed bias towards our out-group. Why? Eye tracking technology provides the answer.
When I look at a face from my racial out-group, eye tracking glasses reveal that I pay little attention to the eyes. But when I see a face from my racial in-group, I fixate on the eyes. Remarkably, this test further reveals my own racial bias, showing I paid attention to the eyes of my in-group 75% of the time. But for the out-group, it was just 20% of the time. So if we don't look enough at out-group faces, could we misread their intentions?
For this next task, simply watch the video and try as accurately as possible to tap your screen the moment that you think the man's face changes.
You try it. This face will change from friendly to angry. When you first see anger, note the number on the timer. How did you go?
This time it's going to be a new face, but your task is the same.
Anger appeared on both faces at 10 on the timer. But did you think it was earlier?
We pay a tremendous amount of attention to one another's faces. And we're quicker to see anger in the face of an out-group member than we are in an in-group member. The extent to which we are quick to spot anger is also linked to our implicit prejudice. So, Yasmin, you saw hostility identically for both men.
So I did okay on this test.
Sylvie, you were...
But the others noticed hostility and anger in their out-group quicker than in their in-group. So unconscious bias can prejudice how we read faces.
Well, that was a real eye-opener. The test demonstrated that we saw hostility in the out-group face before it even existed. So that shows what we perceive. But can the science tell us what we actually feel?
Joining our team is neuroscientist Dr. Pascal Molenbergs. He can demonstrate a remarkable link between empathy and racism.
Yeah, so this test is really going to measure how your body reacts. These are like automatic responses, very difficult to control. And so we're going to see here your galvanic skin responses and your facial responses, if they become more or less active for in-group and out-group members.
I'm going to wire you up with two technologies today. The first one, I'll be putting some electrodes on your face, looking for minute facial expressions. And then we'll also be putting some electrodes on your fingers, and I'll be measuring sweat responses.
Luke is monitoring for signs of the body's flinch response, while each of us is required to watch this.
Coming close to the skin and inserting the needle in the hand.
White and black hands are pierced, and as a control measure, one dyed purple.
I have a reading.
The scientists want to measure how our flinch response varies according to the hand's skin colour. They want to know if we feel the pain of other races equally. While Luke is taking measurements, Fiona and Pascal have retreated to a control room where they can observe our every reaction, without our knowledge.
I am now inserting the needle in the hand.
Shakira's really responding, at least from what I can see, to the pain that she thinks those hands are feeling.
Yeah, that's right. And she seems to respond equally to the black and the white hands, so it doesn't make much of a distinction.
And now I am inserting the needle inside the skin.
So Sylvie looks really surprised. She's really feeling empathy.
That's right.
For those hands.
Neuroscience has shown that when we see people in pain, the same areas of the brain light up as if we were in pain ourselves. It's known as the empathy response.
So Ibrahim looks like he's feeling for the people, certainly, but I'm not getting the big facial expressions.
No, he's very good in hiding his emotions, I find.
He's a cool customer, Ibrahim.
That's right.
Nick is not showing that much activation. I can't really tell what he's feeling right now.
Sometimes people respond very strongly to this type of stimuli, while others almost don't.
So what were our results? Shakira and Sylvie showed the strongest empathy, with no distinction between black and white. Ibrahim and I showed a medium empathy response for both black and white. Nick showed the weakest empathy, especially for the black hand.
Nick, are these the results you would have expected?
Probably, pretty right, pretty spot on sort of thing.
I guess the more specific question is, do you feel like you have less empathy towards people of colour?
My compassion does have limitations, absolutely.
You prefer more people with white skin?
Yeah, I do.
You don't feel bad about that?
No, I don't. the Western world is the best place to live. It's not perfect by no means, but it's brought all you people to this realm of the Western world. It's got more human rights and it's got more justice.
What is your ethnic background?
My ethnic background, Anglo-Russian.
Okay, so you people that have come here includes you.
I'm an Australian, I was born here, I love this country.
But you got the opportunity.
No, I was born here. So why should we bring in people from overseas?
No,
and you're saying that I
I'm
should
not
show
interested.
empathy,
Nick, hold up,
whether they
hold
be
up,
refugees or migrants, when we've got problems here.
Hold up. We've heard that, and you've told us that over and over. I'm not interested in that anymore. I'm interested in the empathy, and you as an individual, not the policy, not the government, not the system. What I'm hearing from you is that you don't think, as a human, you should extend an empathetic hand to people.
To people in my group.
Who don't look like you. The less empathy we have, the more prejudiced we are. The experts call this the racial empathy gap. We've all been exposed as having more unconscious bias than we thought. But what the tests reveal next about our racial attitudes is even more disturbing. It's day 4 of the social experiment, and today's test will uncover the beliefs that can cause racism. But before we do the test, here's a version for you to try. Look at this face. Decide quickly which of these words best describe it. Okay, how about for this face? If you associate any negative words with your outgroup, you may have a bias. We're doing the official scientific version, called the implicit association test, that identifies unconscious racial beliefs. Over 2 million people have done this test online, and 75% of Caucasians and Asians show a bias in favour of white people over black people. But how did we do?
My result says moderate automatic preference for black people over white people. You know what, maybe I'm a little bit biased and I did not realise that. Perhaps.
Shakira, what about you?
My result was no automatic preference between black and white people.
Okay, Nick, let's go to you.
A strong automatic preference for white people over black people. I believe that I do have a bias and I think it's natural.
Okay, Ibrahim.
The results showed that I don't have any preferences between white and black.
Yasmin, let's go to you.
My data suggests no automatic preference between black and white people. I'd say that rings true. I live in a predominantly white society. You know, my in-group would typically be black or people of colour. So hopefully that balances out.
The implicit association test shows that a lot is going on beneath the surface, and in fact that we can have biases or snap associations that we're not even aware of.
You know, I see certain racial groups in Australia having higher levels of criminality or welfare dependency, and I don't think it's a bias just built on because of the colour of their skin. I see it in an economic and social sort of thing.
I'd have to disagree with Nick. I felt the test meant more than just a test. Saying a word and associating that word with a person of colour, and even though I'm trying to breathe, even though I don't associate with that, I'm going to be looked at because of the colour of my skin. And regardless of what, I'm trying to not get emotional, but I've had to deal with that my whole life, and regardless of what I think or what I say or what I do, I'm automatically going to be boxed, automatically going to be judged just because of the colour of my skin. I'm like angry and upset.
It can be easy to forget that there's a human face behind the science. There's a reason that this is being done, and it's to elucidate exactly what you experience, unfortunately.
It's interesting how a test like this makes us feel, I guess, because we're all really attached to the results. Because essentially what this is telling us is what our brain is saying without us consciously choosing it, and that's really confronting. We all have biases, implicit biases, and it's just how much we control them and how much we're aware of them and choose to do something about them.
The implicit association test has raised issues amongst our group.
So what I'm hearing from Shakira is that there is a struggle for Indigenous and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians that white people don't face.
I disagree.
Why do you
I'm
disagree?
feeling that right now. There's nothing. I want this white privilege explained because there's no advantage for me. If you're Aboriginal background, you get preference.
No,
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. There are special privileges. We've got to be honest here.
When Nick makes those comments, it gets to me because I'm like, are you serious? Are you hearing the words that are coming out of your mouth?
I find that really interesting when you say Asian privilege.
There's a massive population of Asians and they've got privilege because they're coming here using the education system and the universities to buy visas.
I was quite blinded with anger. What Nick said about how Asians have privilege, oh my God. You have no idea how much swear word that's coming into my head right now, but I'm not going to. We Asians get discriminated like no tomorrow.
This is the inherent issue, actually. What Nick perceives as Australian is very much white Australia.
Today was intense to the point where it brought me to tears. It brought up some of the issues that I have managed to bury for at least 16 years. Just came out of nowhere and hit me. All these tests so far that I've done made me realize more and more that I don't belong anywhere. I'm not really Korean, I'm not really English or Australian. What am I? Where on earth do I belong? I don't even know anymore.
The lab tests brought up issues for those of us who had experienced racism. But sometimes the impact of racial bias can mean the difference between life and death.
In this container yard, we're about to do a version of a scientific test called the shooter task.
The task we're asking you to do today is to quickly and accurately shoot someone that is armed, but not shoot the person who is holding a wallet.
We're using the e-combat system of laser guns today, so we can really accurately tell if you have shot someone or not.
We have to decide to shoot or not, based on what the person is holding up. A gun or a wallet. The challenge is to see whether we show a racial bias and shoot at an unarmed outgroup member.
We really wanted to start this discussion on the shooter bias.
Confirmed.
And get people thinking about how there might be disproportionate shooting and violence towards people of colour.
We all displayed a shooter bias and were twice as likely to shoot at our outgroup than our in-group.
Confirmed.
The realisation that this was based on a real-life event, shooting someone who was innocent, I felt disgusted with myself. I had these doubts. It was a definite eye-opener for me.
I did shoot some of the non-combatants. It was a good experiment to show that when you're under pressure, you can make mistakes.
The shooter task really brought home the dangers associated with unconscious racial bias and how, if not dealt with, hidden prejudice can have disastrous consequences in the real world. The tests so far have demonstrated how racial bias works in adults. But at what age do kids start believing in racial stereotypes? So I've come to Brisbane to witness a confronting test.
Can you tell me what's in this picture? A bicycle. Okay, cool.
Matty Wilkes is a PhD student studying morality in childhood. Today she's running a test called the Ambiguous Situations Task.
Can you see this is Harry and this is Kyle?
Each picture shows an ambiguous event involving two different races. So what the child reads into the scene is a window into their unconscious racial beliefs.
Can you tell me what do you think's happening in this picture?
Well, Harry has lost his money and Kyle has found it.
And what's Kyle going to do next?
Probably spend it or take it home.
Okay, and is that a good or bad thing to do?
Bad.
A bad thing, okay. So, we're going to look at another picture now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
See this picture? We've got Harry and Kyle. What do you think's happening in this picture?
Well, Kyle has lost his money and Harry has found it.
Okay, so what's Harry going to do next?
Give it back to him.
And is that a good or bad thing to do?
Good.
It's a good thing to do, all right.
So Maddie, what do you think the big picture is with this particular test? What is it telling us?
There has been some evidence that from about 6 or 7 that children were more likely to assign a negative action or a negative intention to the person of colour. You can see in this is Molly and this is Kalinda, yeah?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what's happening in this picture?
Kalinda fell off the swing and Molly's going to go to Kalinda and ask her if she's okay.
And is that a good or bad thing to do?
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing, okay. So let's move on to the next picture.
So Kalinda pushed Molly off the swing.
Is that a good or bad thing for Kalinda to do?
That's a bad thing because she's not even going to help Molly. She's just standing there.
Okay. Now, this is Shona and Lucy this time. So what's happening in this picture?
Maybe Lucy looked in her pocket and there was no money, so Shona's gonna lend her some money.
Okay.
One thing that I thought was really interesting was after the first 2 cards, I saw Bella pause and I wondered whether she was correcting herself, whether she was thinking of the stereotype and saying, no, I'm not going to go that route.
Shona is really nice because she gave Lucy some money.
She refused to say that Shona was a perpetrator. She said, hey, Shona's doing the right thing here.
So yeah, I think that's something that would definitely be possible for children at that age. Not only do they have the cognitive ability to do that, but they have the social awareness of those around them and how other people think and are able to apply that to their own thoughts and actions. If you could just come in for me.
So if children accept racial stereotypes by 8 years old, how early do they make their first judgments based on race? The dolls test provides an insight.
Hannah, I've got some dolls here for you to play with, okay? See how there's all the different dolls? Can you show me which doll do you think is the best?
That one.
And which doll do you want to play with? That one? Okay. Do any of the dolls look bad?
No.
No? Okay. Which is the smart doll?
That one.
That one? And which one looks like your best friend?
That one.
That one? Okay. And which doll looks like you?
That one.
That one? Good work.
Hannah saw the doll that looked like her, the white doll, as being the best one, and that was the doll that she wanted to play with.
And are there any other dolls that you want to play with? No? Okay. See how there's 3 dolls on the table?
Yes.
Can you show me the doll that you like the best? And which doll would you like to play with? Which is the nice doll?
I think it's that one.
Do any of the dolls look bad? And which is the smart doll? That one? Okay.
Because it's from China.
Because it's from China, okay. And which doll looks like your best friend? That one? Okay. And which doll looks like you? Awesome.
Vicky quickly identified the best and the smartest doll as being the Asian doll. And you could see she felt really happy while she was playing with that. One thing that I found really interesting is that most of our children, when asked, which is the doll that's most Australian, picked the white doll.
That one. That's the Australian doll, okay. Do any of the dolls look like they're not Australian? Both of them? Okay.
That one. This one and this one.
Okay, can you tap them on the head for me?
Certainly this sense of feeling that white is the best, is the most privileged identity, begins extremely early.
Okay, Griselle, can you show me the doll that you like the best?
That one.
Okay. And which doll do you want to play with?
That one.
And which doll do you think is the nice doll?
That one.
And which is the smart doll?
That one.
And which doll looks like your best friend? And which doll looks like you? Which doll did you say you wanted to play with?
That one.
Did you want to have a go at playing with her? You're allowed to if you want. Yeah? I felt Griselle looked a bit sad. She obviously had an opinion about which was the best and which was the nicest. But then she was also very aware that she didn't seem to match with that. And it would be quite difficult for her to be able to say, I have learned all these things about society, but I don't fit in with what is the nice, pretty thing.
I felt for Griselle when she chose the white doll, that having dark skin was second best. This test motivates me to search for a solution to racial bias. But can science provide an answer? Six days of testing have revealed unexpected prejudice. But how can this be reduced? The first step is to walk in the shoes of another race. Amazingly, there's a way to feel like you have a different coloured hand to your own.
Okay, Yasmin. Now, if you look down, what you'll see is a rubber hand. Luke is going to attach a clip to your ear, and this is going to monitor your heart rate. So now I'm going to start stroking your hand with this paintbrush. I just want you to watch very closely the rubber hand. Can you feel that clearly? Mm-hmm. The rubber hand illusion is a really interesting effect whereby our brain can be tricked into believing a rubber hand is in fact our own. The actual hand was hidden from view. The eyes are seeing a rubber hand being stroked at the same time as we're feeling being stroked, and so quickly our mind says, okay, I believe you eyes, that's my hand. Are you observing anything?
I guess it feels like what you're doing to this hand is happening to my hand, which is really weird.
So can you tell me what that feels like?
Mind-blowing.
Well, it kind of feels like my own hand.
In every case, the rubber hand was their outgroups.
It just feels like it's my hand. It's insane.
After we'd stroked the hand for a while, I got out a hammer. If they've come to see that hand as their own, what we should see is a big startled response.
Whoa. What? I withdrew my hand and I'm like, that's not moving. And you're really gonna go for gold and hit that.
I saw a massive spike. I saw your heart rate jump probably 25 beats per minute in about 5 seconds.
Wow.
Yo! Damn it. Huh.
Oh no, oh my God, ah! Okay.
It looked as if you really hit my hand.
Your heart rate shot up over 35 beats per minute.
Gosh, that's bizarre.
I thought the task may be a little bit more difficult for Nick, but you could see his face light up with surprise. He was starting to see that hand as his own. I think the power of this illusion came as a real surprise to Nick.
I wasn't expecting that. No. But yeah, no, I honestly felt that it was my hand, even though it's a different colour. I could have those sort of sense of feeling and emotion there that, yeah.
Wow. I'm actually super impressed. If you had told me that this was going to happen, I probably wouldn't have believed you.
The more we challenge ourselves to put ourselves in one another's shoes, the less racist we become. So for Nick, that brief experience could be the start of real change.
Experiencing a different colour hand made us all the more compassionate towards our outgroup. But the science shows that the best way to tackle prejudice is to develop a close relationship with someone of a different race. Experts refer to this as cross-group friendship. And this is what I want to explore next. One of the things you said was that you believe bias is natural.
Indeed,
what sort of biases do you hold to the people in the group here?
Racially speaking, yes, I'm in a different in-group sort of thing. It doesn't mean that I don't feel, I do have empathy for people, but I had a lot of things in my life before that I probably cried all the tears out of me. I don't know, but I'm still emotional. Sometimes I probably hold it in.
Listening to Nick and learning more about him and where he's coming from, I think really understanding the two sides to the story.
Some of the things that I said, I didn't want to see Sylvie cry, I didn't want to see Shakira cry, but I've taken it on board.
Nick has been very open with us and very brave, so and I do applaud him for it, for actually opening up and saying how he feels about it.
And it is joy for me that I'm able to sort of sit here and talk in such a way, and it's opened something that's new to me that I would never have experienced if I wouldn't have come on this journey. Yeah. The round table group was definitely an opportunity to open up, and I feel more comfortable with them. We could find middle ground. You can never learn enough, sort of thing.
I think Nick really softened at that round table, and this shows that attitudes can shift once we start to connect on a human level. But I want scientific proof that racist thinking can actually change. It turns out that it can. And one answer lies in how the brain works. When confronted with an outgroup face, it takes just 1/30th of a second for the brain's alarm region to put us on high alert. But within half a second, the conscious mind starts to activate and can override the alarm mechanism. Our brain is giving us a chance to rein in unwanted prejudice. So what the neuroscience tells us is that racism is a choice. The more time we spend with other races, the more our brain adapts and the less racist we become. And there's another guaranteed way to reduce racism. To decrease prejudice, empathy must increase. An important step is to accurately recognise the emotions of other people. The more we relate to what others are feeling, the less racist we are towards them. We've been joined by Liz Corbett, an expert in how to spot the micro-expressions associated with racism.
Today we're going to replicate some of the 7 universal expressions and emotions on the face and see how good you are at spotting what is right there in front of you. I'd like you to turn around and look at Sylvie for a minute. Now, Sylvie, that's a glass of water that I've prepared there for you. Could you have a sip of the water?
Okay.
Great. Now, pick the water back up again. I want you to spit in that water.
What?
Come on, spit in the glass. And now drink that for me.
No!
Right, was everyone watching Sylvie's face?
Yeah.
What did you see?
just disgust.
So, there's some key elements to disgust. The lips loose, nose wrinkled, and one of the most reliable indicators is just that lip going up ever so slightly. So we're going to talk about another emotion now that's a very important emotion when it comes to reading behaviour and making judgments about people. Everyone turn around and look at Nick for a moment. Now, Nick, I'd like you to think about a previous workplace.
Okay.
Somewhere you've worked and with somebody that you didn't like very much. Think about that. So have a look at the screen now. The emotion there is called contempt. And contempt is always shown on only one side of the face. It's a smirk. Try it now. Think about somebody that you dislike, someone that you think that you're superior to. It really only appears on one side of the face. And with Nick, we saw it appear over on his left side. Imagine that in a micro-expression, quarter of a second, flashing across someone's face. That could be important.
Wow. It's insane. I did not know that.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to talk about another important emotion. And I'd like everybody just to turn around and look at Shakira. So that was fear that we saw on Shakira's face there, a flash of fear. Eyes wide, mouth wide, into the fight or flight mode. I've got to get out of here. And there was a mix of some other emotions, but primarily fear. Mouth stretched sideways, eyelids pulled back.
We often think that we're carefully masking what we feel inside, and that our facial expressions never give us away. But microaggressions can be written all over our face, and others may pick up on them. It's the 10th and final day of our experiment, and I'm on my way into the lab for the last time. Scheduled for today is a deceptively simple technique used to bring people in conflict closer together.
Nick makes certain comments about Australia and like the Indigenous people didn't have a nation. That's frustrating.
I think Shakira should just remove those emotions because I'm not attacking her. I'm not making it personal. I'm just talking about the way that I see things.
Shakira and Nick, we're going to do a procedure called the Fast Friends task, used quite extensively in race relations research. The Fast Friends procedure works by having two people from different groups ask each other increasingly intimate questions. Shakira, could you please pick a blue question out of your bowl?
Nick, what is your most treasured memory?
Goodness me, probably the birth of my children and also seeing my mother after a long period of time of absence, yeah. Family, yeah.
I can relate to that because I'm very close to my family.
Who in your family do you most admire and why?
Would be, honestly, my mother. You know, there were times where it was really hard and I've seen my mother struggle and still keep going and grow from that, so that's taught me a lot. And you're very close with your mum as well.
Yeah, I am. I'm very close and I've drawn a lot of inspiration from her struggles.
During the Fast Friends procedure, people tell very personal stories about themselves. And by people recognizing the experience in their own life, their brains become much more aligned to each other and the more empathy we feel towards others.
So, Pascal, does the neuroscience actually support this? Like, this is a legit thing?
Yes, that's right. People become more empathic. And we see that they're laughing together, they're mimicking their expressions more closely. The science is really strong on this.
That's pretty amazing.
How many siblings do you have?
6.
Ah, so we have another thing.
Yes.
4 girls.
His mum and dad divorced.
Same.
It's funny though.
I definitely think the Fast Friend procedure worked. It's creating an eased atmosphere where you both feel comfortable, you're having a laugh, but you're really getting to know each other on a personal level. An interesting tool, which I never heard of before.
I've learned so much.
Oh,
No worries, okay, thank you. We cuddled each other and showed those sort of emotions that I guess that we care for each other, you know? Like, I hope that I can continue to have a friendship.
Oh, Di, you're going to make me cry. Again.
The Fast Friends exercise worked well. Nick and Shakira had never been through an experience like this before, and I was amazed by the transformative power of such a simple task. Over the last 10 days in Sydney, we've measured unconscious bias, exposed racial attitudes, and trained to become less prejudiced. But has the experience created any personal change in the volunteers? I've organised a dinner to find out.
Like another artsy person.
I guess the really interesting thing about this whole experience has been how, our interactions with each other have transformed over the time. Sylvie, this has been a transformational experience.
Yeah, definitely. Now I feel very positive, obviously. Actually quite excited at this knowledge that I'm getting. I feel enlightened, if that makes any sense. It's about recognizing, accepting that there's a bias, and then doing something about it instead of saying, oh, well, that's just how it is.
Well, the main thing I can say I gained from this experience is I got to understand myself more than before. And we have got to learn a lot from each other that have somehow changed the way we think, and that means something to me.
Shakira.
It's definitely helped me grow as a person, to not be so biased. I've really gotten to understand a different side of Nick. I can say now, after these 10 days, I can call you a mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, thank you. I have learned a lot. What I'm going to take home with this experience is that I can see things very differently because I've been exposed to different people and in a totally different framework. It's given me an opportunity to leave politics aside and think about something else that is real, and it's made me feel good. It honestly has made me feel good.
Our social experiment has confirmed that with the help of science, 5 strangers can recognise and overcome prejudice.
I'd like to make a toast really to all of us, this great experience, and that I love you all, that I really do. I love you all as beautiful people, and the experience that I've had I'll cherish for the rest of my life, and thank you for a great opportunity.
Cheers to that. Cheers to staying connected and to learning. Thank you very much, guys.
It's my honest belief that everyone emerged changed following our 10-day experience, that everyone was different to how they came in.
Keep in touch, all right?
Yeah.
If people can change over 10 days, then this is an incredibly hopeful message for how we can change over our lifespan.
Racism is a complex issue with no simple solution. But this new frontier of science could change the way we tackle racism forever.